You're tuning into the deep dive because you're interested in getting the core of a subject quickly, but, thoroughly, without feeling buried under information.
Yeah, we get it.
And today we're doing exactly that. We're plunging into a fascinating and pretty pivotal year for a truly unique Texas artist, Bob Camblin in 1978.
And what a year it seems to have been, judging by the rich material you shared. We've got these excerpts from a year-by-year biography just called 1978.
Right.
And this great compilation of his thoughts, Bob Camblin quotes, and other mysteries.
Yeah, those quotes are something else. They really give us a fantastic window into his world, don't they?
Absolutely.
Camblin was this, incredibly intriguing person. His interests were just all over the place, from ancient history to some really quirky takes on daily life.
Mm-hmm.
So our mission kind of in this deep dive is to explore 1978 through these sources, to really, uncover the key insights into his art process, his unique way of seeing things.
Well, maybe find
A few surprises along the way, hopefully. Okay, let's unpack this, because the very start of 1978 was pretty significant. There was this fascinating project he kicked off.
Yes, January 78, that's when Camblin started work on a commission in Kuwait. And what's really interesting, I think, is his awareness of the art traditions he was tapping into.
Especially with the skull symbol.
Exactly. It wasn't just some random image for him. He clearly understood the long history of skulls in art.
Not just as, reminders of mortality, the whole memento mori thing.
Right, but also their epitropic qualities.
Yeah.
That idea they could, ward off evil.
He even kept a skull in his studio, like Picasso.
Mm-hmm. Exactly like Picasso.
Yeah.
And this deep understanding, it really shaped how he approached that Kuwait commission.
Yeah, the sketchbook entries make that clear. He explicitly talks about choosing a memento mori still composition.
And referencing Velázquez and Picasso directly. So this wasn't just like borrowing. It was a deliberate conversation he was having with art history.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting for me. He wasn't just, rehashing old ideas. For this specific commission, he started using a completely new painting technique. Dots and dashes.
Right. And that sketchbook entry for the Al-Naqvi family portrait, 1978 ABC, wow, that just throws open a window into his head. It's like a whirlwind of connections.
It really is. I mean, the title itself, Variation on Las Meninas.
Straight away, it tells you he's talking to Velázquez's masterpiece.
And then the ABC, A for Kuwait, B London, C Salt Lake City. What do you make of that? It suggests this multi-layered connection, maybe where the family members were.
Could be. It definitely grounds it in specific places, even while he's referencing this huge historical painting.
And then that incredibly evocative line, the skull behind all things, even our children have one. And yet beyond the mirrors of every imaginable kind, the man stands in the door with his back to the light and reflects on it. That image, the man in the doorway, back to the light, but reflecting, it really makes you think about perspective, doesn't it? Like, what are we choosing to see?
Absolutely. Is the light showing what's ahead, or is it casting shadows? And the skull behind all things. That's such a powerful reminder. Mortality just underlying everything.
Even life itself. And it gets even more meta, with flickering brush eye in mind, and in time, we stand in that room in the different diagonals, and we see Velázquez, Picasso, and me watching the years roll by.
Oh.
And we are in a room using the SW wall to stretch Las Meninas again and let that room blend into thou. It's like he's collapsing time, putting himself right in them with them.
It's amazing. He's almost having a conversation across centuries, isn't he?
Yeah. What do you make of that blending of spaces, stretching Las Meninas onto the wall?
Well, what's fascinating is he's not just paying homage, right? He's actively putting himself and the Al-Naqvi family into this whole historical artistic thing.
Right.
That flickering brush eye, it suggests, like the living, active mind of the artist, something that lasts through time.
And blending that room into thou, including the living family, he's breaking down barriers there.
Yep.
He also mentions Phosics, history, Arabs, these specific elements he's weaving in.
Which highlights that it's not just art history in a vacuum. It's tied to the specific context, the people involved in this commission.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And the idea that this whole homage, art, family, history will be abstracted and distilled, that tells us he wasn't going for like a literal copy.
Something deeper.
Exactly. More essential. And the plan to bury the painting and a book about it in Kuwait.
That's wild.
It is. With the excess being his homage. It's like creating this time capsule, embedding it right there. So symbolic.
He even thinks about the values, the lightness and darkness. He wanted his painting lighter than Velázquez and Picasso,
A reversal of all the values, creating a light painting.
with a light man standing in front of a black hole.
Whoa.
And the mirrors are always the same, colorless, showing a little less each time. And then that little question in parentheses.
Where does that little bit go?
Yeah. What do you think he's getting at there? It's so intriguing.
It makes you think about, well, the subtle shifts. Time, memory, maybe even artistic influence, fading slightly.
Mm.
The mirrors showing a little less each time.
Mm-hmm.
Suggest a gradual fading, right? A tiny loss with every reflection. It's kind of beautiful, but also a bit melancholic.
Yeah, it is. And then he connects all that to the desert rose and more or less, and the people I know and the ones I've only heard about, photos, Arabian Nights.
All these personal and cultural touchstones.
Right. They're fueling his curating dreams, he says, letting him paint as if it was already hanging there.
It really shows how personal experience just feeds directly into the creative work, doesn't it? He's vividly imagining it in place.
Imbuing the act of painting with this connection.
Exactly, like he's already talking to the future viewers.
And I love the image of him laughing with Earl and Picasso, Velázquez and Silverman, a more serious pair.
Yeah, it's one of them.
He sees himself in that line, but there's this playful self-awareness too. And the idea of the court painter, immortalizing the family and himself, that really fits this commission.
Totally. And ultimately, he sees the painting as chalet patrons and artists sharing some time together, even if they never meet in that time space called now.
That's such a poignant way to put it, that connection between artist and patron lasting beyond time and place.
Yeah.
Okay, so, wow, that Kuwait commission was clearly huge for him. And it gives us these amazing insights into his thinking.
But definitely a cornerstone of the year.
But 1978 wasn't just about that one project. He was actually pretty active in other ways, too, all through the year.
Oh, yeah. The biography notes he was in 4 exhibitions and 2 benefit auctions as well.
So constantly engaged with the art world, sharing his work.
Seems like it, connecting with a wider audience.
He also did some traveling. May, he went out to Claremont, California, visited another artist, Gerald Purdy.
Mm-hmm.
And that same month, May, he was part of the Art of Texas show up in Chicago. That puts his work in a bigger context, right?
It does. 15 Texas artists at the Renaissance Society, University of Chicago. Pretty significant venue.
Mm-hmm.
And I found this quote from a review by Abby Martin in a Chicago Reader. She said, "This Texan art is art first and Texan thereafter." What do you think that suggests?
That's interesting. It suggests maybe that the focus was on the quality of the art itself, not just like, oh, it's Texan art.
Right. That any regional stuff was secondary.
Speaks to his ambition, maybe, to be seen as an artist, period, not just a Texas artist.
Exactly. Pushes back against pigeonholing regional art,
Yeah. Then in July, it sounds like he was feeling a bit discontented in Houston.
Yeah, the bio mentions that.
So he took a trip up to Kalamazoo, Michigan, and he noted that these kinds of trips, these sojourns, gave him some relief from depression.
That seems really important, those changes of scenery. Crucial for his well-being, maybe his creativity too.
Lots of artists find that, don't they? Travel shaking things up.
Absolutely. Breaks routines, offers fresh perspective, new inspiration.
So back in Houston, mid-July to early August, he had a show at Moody Gallery. Prints and posters by Bob Camblin and other artists with Little Egypt Enterprises.
Texas Monthly even mentioned it.
Right. And then came a big move in August.
Yes, he relocated to Mexico, spent 2 months down in Oaxaca at the Casa Markham.
And his letter to MJ gives some insight there.
It does. He says a longer stay without a car was tough, but that this voluntary exile, his term, had worked admirably.
Interesting phrase, voluntary exile.
Isn't it? And he found he could go on living with no one around, but it is not my true nature.
So he needed the solitude, but also knew he needed connection.
Sounds like it. He even expected visitors to, lure him back to Houston, but apparently they never showed up.
Wow. That push and pull, seeking solitude but needing people, that feels very human, doesn't it?
It really does. That's a constant negotiation for a lot of creative people, I think.
Definitely.
And what's also fascinating from Mexico, his experience with Day of the Dead.
Oh, yeah.
He got really fascinated by the sugar skulls. Bought a whole box of them.
Nope.
Yeah. And he started drawing and painting skulls during this time. So that skull motif, which was so key for the Kuwait piece.
He just kept going in his personal work, too.
Exactly. It was clearly a major theme for him then.
Yeah, and it's really interesting seeing all the different signatures he used that year.
Oh, yeah. Bless those again.
Mr. Peanut, KS, Anonymous Box Co. Anonymous Anon, Robin Goodfellow, red stick, and just Camblin.
Wow. It's like he was trying on different hats artistically.
What do you make of that? Just playing around. Or something deeper.
Could be a few things,
Yeah.
right? Maybe playful identity exploration, like you said,
Mhm.
or maybe wanting to detach himself sometimes,
Right.
or even questioning the whole idea of the artist's persona, the branding side of art.
Interesting. Okay, later in the year, September, he donated a lithograph, Earth, from his Element series
So like
to a benefit auction in Waco.
keeping involved.
Yeah. And then mid-September to late October, a solo show. Watercolors and lithographs by Bob Camblin down in Corpus Christi at the Art Museum of South Texas.
Showed a lot of work there, too, it looks like. The Element Suite, Four Seasons, other pieces.
Right, Texas Dandelion, Rainbow Isle, a whole range. And Texas Monthly mentioned that one too. Seems he was pretty prolific across different media.
He certainly was.
Mm.
And during that same time, he was also in the Spirit of Texas show up in Wisconsin.
Oh yeah, Sheboygan, exhibiting Baton Rouge log or the Red Stick log.
So engaging way beyond Texas, too. He wasn't just focused locally.
Definitely seems that way. And it's worth noting, Moody Gallery donated his Element Suite to the Brooklyn Museum that year.
Wow. That's significant recognition.
Huge deal. And then November, he's in the Houston Symphony Marathon, the second art sale. Big event, Saks Fifth Avenue, lots of galleries.
Houston Chronicle covered it. Texas Monthly mentioned it again.
Right. It really paints this picture of an artist who's like deeply embedded in the art community and recognized.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That level of activity just underscores his presence in Houston and beyond.
And even with all that going on, exhibitions, travel, donations.
He's still working with Little Egypt Enterprises, finishing new prints. Winter, Dandelion State 1.
Yeah. It's clear 1978 was just packed. Intense activity, lots of exploration, juggling that huge commission with everything else.
A really dynamic year.
Which brings us neatly to the second part of this deep dive. His actual thoughts and ideas from that Quotes and Other Mysteries document.
Yeah, this is where it gets really fascinating, connecting the dots between what he was doing and what he was thinking.
Totally. Because his art explorations, like the skulls or the new techniques, they weren't happening in isolation, were they?
Not at all. They seemed deeply tied into how he saw the world, art, existence itself.
Okay, so one quote that really jumped out at me. His interest in common sense and the perfectly average view, which he says lets him enjoy both science and magic.
That embrace of apparent opposites.
Yeah,
What do you get from that?
it suggests a mind that's just open,
Yeah.
curious, willing to find wonder in different ways of knowing. Maybe that explains how he could draw on old traditions, but also innovate. He wasn't stuck in one box.
That makes sense. Not bound by a single perspective.
He also talks about senza dugia without a doubt being the sixth sense.
Ah, yes.
That feels really connected to the conviction you'd need for something like that Kuwait Commission, doesn't it? That artistic certainty.
Oh, absolutely. That inner certainty that, without a doubt, it's crucial for any big creative leap, right? Especially when you're tackling complex themes or pushing against norms. You need that belief to drive forward.
And his thought about finding something in nature that completes you and then surrendering. That resonates with his move to Mexico, maybe? That desire to connect with something fundamental outside the Houston scene?
Yeah, the respite he found on those trips, especially Mexico.
Yeah.
You could see that as a kind of surrender, maybe. Letting a different environment in, allowing for different inspiration, breaking from the usual grind.
Makes sense. And then there's the light is all you need. The end is to evolve by doing the best you can.
That feels like a core artistic principle, doesn't it?
Yeah. Focusing on light, obviously key in visual art, but also that idea of process. Just keep evolving by doing your best work.
And that focus on process, on just doing your best, it aligns with how productive he was all year. Even when he was apparently feeling discontent, he just kept creating.
He really did. He also reflects on balance, patience, freedom.
Which could definitely tie into those inner struggles, maybe. That pull between wanting solitude in Mexico, but needing connection back in Houston.
The personal stuff behind the art.
Exactly. The artist's life often involves navigating those tensions, right? Structure versus freedom, engagement versus solitude. These quotes give us a little glimpse into his internal balancing act.
And his view of art evolving from art for art's sake to art for life's sake, or even survival.
That's telling.
Yeah. It suggests maybe a deeper engagement with the purpose of his work, perhaps fueled by his own experiences, feeling unsettled. Maybe feeling art needed to do more than just be aesthetic, especially when he felt discontent.
That shift feels significant. Like he was looking for a more profound link between his art practice and his actual life.
Yeah, and the idea of stepping off the train of thought to find a different kind of power.
Hmm.
That speaks to intuition, right? Breaking free from